Our next speaker is Chris Williams from Big Fish Games, and I am going to go so far to say that Big Fish won casual PC games. Oberon is basically out of business, Real Arcade is basically out of business, PopCap has now been sold to EA. I think that Big Fish can be declared the winner of casual PC games, and Chris's job seems to be to also get them into the free-to-play business so they can win that as well. So Chris, I'd like to hear how you're going to do that.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you for the introduction. Just so I can kind of dial this up or down in terms of level of detail, can I actually just see a show of hands, people in the crowd who are currently developing or have a live free-to-play game, either on Facebook, mobile? All right. Good number of you, so great. So some of this stuff might seem a little basic to some of you, but I'm going to try and go deep with a bunch of data as well. We've got a full hour for the session, so hopefully you don't get too tired of me and head for the doors too soon. I do have a lot of very proprietary data in the presentation. I will be talking about how our games are performing. I will be giving you specific numbers around monetization, retention, detailed numbers that are proprietary to us. And again, that's in the spirit of helping you and hopefully incentivizing you to want to partner with us around your free-to-play games. So I'm going to go real quick through who is Big Fish. I think most of you probably know most of the facts on this slide. We're the world's largest producer of casual games and the largest publisher of casual games. We've been around for about 10 years. We've now distributed more than 2 billion casual games. And we launch a new game every day on the PC and Mac. Means we've got about 3,000 games, a little over 3,000 games, and we've worked with over 550 developer partners worldwide. The games are sold in 150 countries, 250 unique mobile games, over 800 SKUs, and we have a number of offices around the world. So we make a lot of games. This is one way to say that we have a lot of content, and we've partnered with a lot of different developers over the years to make this content. And you know, I think one of the things we'll sort of reinforce throughout this is that in free-to-play, it's not necessarily about quantity of games, it's about quality of games, and it's about engaging those users, and you know, users are not going to sort of blow through content quickly. So as we approach free-to-play, one of the themes you'll hear throughout this presentation, which may seem a little out of sorts with what you think of Big Fish based on these stats, is that we're going to be focusing in free-to-play on fewer games, you know, deeper relationships with partners, and we'll go into some details about why that is the case. So today we're going to talk about how Big Fish is doing today. We're going to give you a snapshot of where our three current free-to-play games are at, and sort of help you benchmark the relative success of those. Then I'm actually going to go through a series of slides, and I'm just going to do a side-by-side comparison of how premium casual game development and the business behind premium casual games is different than free-to-play. And for purposes of how I'm going to use the term premium in this presentation, what I mean by that, I mean, I think it's well understood given this audience, but just to even further clarify, these are the games that we sell on our site or are available through mobile, where the game is typically free to download, and then at some point during that game experience, you're asked to spend money to continue playing the game. Jessica did a presentation yesterday talking about premium casual gaming. We are huge believers that there is a long future ahead of us in premium casual gaming, both on the PC and on mobile. We have games that we're launching with partners that are you know, doing between $1 to $3 million in lifetime revenue across all the different platforms that we release them on. And you know, we're very optimistic that that content, however, is very different in that it's consumable. It's like a book. Our users come to our site. We have a lot of them. They show up and they are looking for something to entertain themselves. They're looking to relax. They're looking to get into that game. They want to sit down at their computer or their iPad for an hour or two and, you know, really immerse themselves in a great story. They're looking for incredible visuals. They want to be compelled by puzzles. And that is a very different model than how users interact with and consume free-to-play games. So we'll be highlighting some of that as we go through. We'll talk about some best practices, how you can think about monetization and retention in your free-to-play game. What are some of the KPIs, what are the key performance indicators that you should be looking for in your games to know that you have something that is successful. And then, I think it's worth the theme throughout this will be that we want to be your partner. If you have a great free-to-play game and you're looking for help and support, either on licensing it with us, and we can help you with distribution. We can also get involved right from the concept stage and work with you all the way through to launching the product and beyond. So definitely we're moving our publishing strengths into this space, and we're looking for content. So let's just do a little state of the world, or state of the industry for free-to-play casual today. So everyone's looking at the top grossing iOS charts, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that it's pretty much all free-to-play content that's raking in the big bucks on mobile right now. And if you think, it's a hit-driven business, you're right. The games that, the number 10 grossing game in the App Store, it makes 10 times the revenue of the number 100. And it's a pretty steep drop-off from there down into, number 1,000. So it's very much a lot of revenue, a lot of users, and a lot of spending is concentrated around a small number of games. The cost for a paid install right now, a high-quality paid install, someone who's actually going to play your game, not just install it so that they get points in some other game, is about $4. So if you do the math on that, a $500,000 marketing budget dries up pretty quick when you're going out and spending at those kinds of levels. And the market's very saturated. I think everyone likes to look at the sort of needle in a haystack, diamond in the rough moment where the game comes out of nowhere, quote unquote, out of nowhere, and rockets to number 1 grossing, and believe that can be them. It's very, very difficult. There is a lot of headwind to get a top grossing game around the free-to-play model. On Android, there's a lot more users. You're going to see a lot more installs, but they're not going to monetize as well. And there's obviously device fragmentation there, which, as you guys know, being developers, makes developing for Android very challenging. Over on the PC Mac, the primary place in which people have been playing free-to-play games, certainly the one that has been getting the most attention over the past couple of years is Facebook. And the revenue per user that you're going to get on Facebook is much, much lower than what you're going to get on mobile. The user acquisition costs have also gone up dramatically. And in general, I think, I don't tell you guys this, but developers are shifting towards mobile and taking a mobile-first approach. It used to be you made a social game on Facebook, and then you thought eventually about bringing it to iOS. Now everyone is essentially leading with mobile. And this is some app data for Cityville 2, which was recently shut down by Zynga. Even the big publishers that have a lot of users on Facebook are struggling to launch new games. Sounds pretty dismal, doesn't it? Sounds scary. So how's Big Fish doing? Well, we only have 3 free-to-play games right now on mobile. On mobile in general, just to give you some stats as to how we're doing on mobile, we do about 1.5 million new installs of our games every week on iOS specifically. We have these 3 free-to-play games. The little icons there from left to right are Casino. That was the Christmas version of Casino, where she was wearing a Santa hat. Fairway Solitaire, so Casino doesn't need much explanation as to what kind of game it is. Fairway Solitaire is there in the middle with the little gopher. That's a card action arcade game, really fun game. If you haven't played it, you should definitely check it out. And then Found, that's the skull with the volcano coming out of its head, is our first free-to-play hidden object game that we did through a partnership with Elephant Games. Over on the PC Mac, on our Big Fish PC App Store, we've launched 2 games. Casino is an online game that you play in the browser. You can go to Big Fish Games right now and play it. And it's Found is a free-to-play downloadable game. So what we've done is we've built in-app purchase technology into an SDK that we're actively rolling out right now for both mobile, or for both downloadable and online free-to-play games. And both of these games are doing very well. I'll talk in more detail a little bit later about the monetization that we're seeing in Found in particular. Now, on the PC Mac, I want to stress that we are, in what we're looking for, we're looking to partner deeply with developers, but we're also very open to bringing your content to PC Mac if you've made a very successful iPad free-to-play game and it's doing well, it's monetizing well, and you're looking for some audience for that game, if you have a cross-platform technology solution and can build a PC version of that game and integrate our in-app purchase SDK, we're very interested in talking to you about that game and that content and getting it live on our site. We have about 15 million people that visit our site every month, and they show up to spend money. They don't show up to check their news feed, and they don't show up to you know, comment on pictures. They show up to play games, and they're interested in spending money on games. So we're very interested in your content for your free-to-play content for the PC. So there it is, in case that wasn't clear on what I just said. So how are we doing? Well, let's just put our monthly revenue up on the wall, and we'll show you how we're doing from a growth basis. So Big Fish started 2012 doing about $1 million a month in free-to-play revenue, and we finished the year creeping up close to $4 million in monthly revenue. So that's about 300% growth, 275% growth. So that's all on the back of 3 games. So again, you know, we're hoping this growth trajectory continues well into 2013 and 2014. And if you can look at, you probably get one guess on where the bulk of that revenue is coming from, is from our casino game, which is the world's #1 mobile social casino game. It very consistently ranks in the top 10 grossing in the US on iOS. And it bounces around in the charts based on various promotions and things that we're doing. It has a lot of very engaged users. It monetizes very well, very high ARPDAU, and this is a game that Self-Aware Games created for us and is now a part of Big Fish, and we're very, very pleased with the success of this title. And we get a lot of learnings from this game. So when you're dealing with a casino-type game, we get a lot of really key data points, which we're more than happy to share with our partners as they develop their free-to-play games in terms of, you know, how users engage with each other, how users are monetizing, and all of that. Fairway Solitaire is a really great success story. This game actually launched as a sort of try before you buy premium game, and the team continued to work on it and add you know, a lot of free-to-play functionality. And what's really worth noting here is because a lot of people talk about games as a service and you know, live ops and how important that can be. Here's a chart that's showing the daily revenue for Fairway Solitaire, and you can see that, you know, towards, basically it was creeping up until August of last year. The game was doing okay, but not great. The team was working hard on it, and they just didn't quite have it right in terms of monetization. And they released 2 key updates. I'm going to tell you what these updates were in a second, but what's important about this chart is you can see it wasn't just a sudden lift in revenue that depleted the following day. It wasn't like a momentary surge. They moved their baseline twice dramatically based on 2 key updates, and are now doing over 300% more revenue a day compared to what they were doing at the end of August. So this is proof positive when everyone tells you you have to keep working on your free-to-play game, you have to keep iterating. You know, a couple of key features can really move the needle dramatically in terms of your key performance metrics. And here's Found. So what I'm showing you here is a chart that is the average revenue per day per user of all the people that are playing the game, not the paying users, on a daily basis since we launched the game. And it's about, call it 15 cents. So back in the Facebook days, if anyone of you were involved in the early days of Facebook, a 2 to 3 cent DARPU was great, and everyone was high-fiving. In the world of mobile, you can expect much, much higher DARPUs. And I'll show some data from Flurry in a little bit that sort of benchmarks what you can expect. But this is how Found is doing, and we're very happy with this result, as is Elephant Games, and they're continuing to iterate on the product, and we believe that we can continue to improve this over time moving forward. So that's how we're doing. I will now move into the next section of the presentation, which is just kind of contrasting premium versus free-to-play casual games. And I'm just putting a lot of things just side by side so you can see these key data points. But a premium casual game is a product. It's a product that you ship and then you're done with it. And it has an ongoing lifetime. You know, what Big Fish will do is we'll take that game and we'll put it out on PC Mac, then we'll put it on mobile, then we'll bring it to our streaming service. You know, we'll take it to a lot of different countries. It will have a long life and a long tail. It will be a gift that keeps on giving revenue for many years. But from a development standpoint, you're done. It's pretty much wrapped up, with the exception of maybe some porting and you know, any support for operating system changes and things like that. Free-to-play games, you guys have heard this 1,000 times. I'll just stress it once more. It is a service. It's more akin to launching a website. You are forming a lasting relationship with your users. You're going out and making a commitment to them, and they're making a commitment to you that you will be there for them day in, day out, and that in playing your game, they have basically signed up for an ongoing service, and it's a very different mentality for both the developer, the publisher, and the user. So what that means is that your game has to be very dynamic. Every aspect of your game has to be something that can be adapted. That the way I like to think about it is your user needs to believe that your game is alive. They need to feel like it has a pulse. Like right now, if you're playing a free-to-play game that you're not conscious of somewhere deep in the back of your mind, like that it's going on, like it's happening without you right now on your phone, and you're kind of thinking about checking it, that's a successful free-to-play game. It's always there, it's always on, it's connected, it's dynamic, things are happening, and you want to be a part of it. For the premium casual games, people play those largely to relax. It's me time. It's, the husband's watching sports, and I'm going to sit down and enjoy this game. For free-to-play casual, you see tons of different reasons why people play. Some people get really into sort of the collection aspect of it. Some people really want to build something out that they feel a sense of ownership over, and they want to collect everything in the game. They want to collaborate with others. They want meaningful social connections. It becomes an outlet for them to work with others. So there's tons of different reasons. These all seem to happen to start with the letter C, but I'm sure there are a few that don't. In terms of the social aspects, free-to-play games we all used to refer to them as social games, but I think the reality is that people expect some level in it being dynamic of interacting with other users. It's not required, but I'll give you some data a little later on how valuable it is to have meaningful social connections and how that drives much better monetization and retention. In terms of how users play these games, I mentioned the contrast of the session lengths. Your average session length for free-to-play games is around 10 minutes, and on the premium casual side, it's much longer. It's an hour to 2. But ideally, with a successful free-to-play game, those 10 minutes are happening so many times a day it's ultimately racking up to 20+ hours a week in engagement time. And the other thing that you see with free-to-play games, which you wouldn't see with a highly engaging and engrossing game, is what we call the sort of the second screen phenomenon, where users are sitting there, and I'm sure we've all done this, you're sitting there watching TV, and you have your iPad or your iPhone on your lap, and you're engaging with a free-to-play game, you're checking into it, you're coming back every 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's a very common use case for these games, and something that you definitely want to be thinking about when you're designing them, that users will want to be able to sort of have them always on their lap, and be able to interact with them on an ongoing basis. So what does this mean in terms of technology? Well, it means that in order to make your game dynamic, you will need a server. You will need some kind of back-end infrastructure that is going to power all of these dynamic connected features. Whether it's social features, whether it's the ability to configure your game remotely, whether it's downloading new content to the game. Can't download code, but you can download new content. And you can run in-game promotions, merchandising, limited time offer, all those types of features. Very, very important to have the server-connected piece of your game. The iteration period that happens when you're submitting a game to the App Store is just far too slow. If you're waiting 3, 4, 5 weeks to get new content, tuning and tweaking in front of your users, you're just moving way too slowly. So you need to go out the door with a game that is highly connected. Another key piece of server-side technology that you want to be thinking about is users are going to invest so much in these games, and their save game is going to become so precious to them that if they lose their device or delete the app or something goes wrong and you haven't kept that safe for them, you haven't actually taken their save game and put it on your servers, you've lost a very valuable and loyal customer. So taking the user save game and consistently persisting it to your servers is a very, very key feature for a free-to-play game. Because you not only have to be able to go in and help them and administer them if they get into issues, you want to be able to do fraud detection, you want to be able to go in and see users who are maybe manipulating the in-app purchase mechanism. So that's another very key aspect of the server, and if it's not strong and stable and bulletproof, and your users relying on it to get their save game, you can run into a lot of issues and potentially have downtime, which would be dreaded. Now, as a publisher, we're going to provide these servers to you. We have lots of server infrastructure, and so part of what we offer our partners around free-to-play is we'll stand up a server for you, we'll get it all set up. You need to provide the engineers to actually do the server-side coding and connecting your game to it, but this is definitely something that we're offering as a part of our publishing model. So what can you expect in terms of revenue? Well, if you publish a premium casual game with us, the risk of having absolutely no revenue is pretty low. Free-to-play casual game, you go out there and you see them all the time. They look great. God, that game looked just like Dragonvale. I always wonder why it's not making any money. The chances are you will get, it's a very high probability that you'll make very little money off a free-to-play game, especially at launch. And your peak revenue month will not be your first month. It might not even be your 6th month. It might be 12 months in that you actually hit your stride in terms of your monetization. So, and you don't know, and it's very hard to predict and very hard to make a set of assumptions around that. So when you're dealing with less than 5% of your users actually spending money, and then the wild variable of some will spend $1 and some will spend over $5,000, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of what you don't know going out the door. And even once you've launched and you're trying to make sense of all of your data, it's very challenging as well to really understand what's going on. So this is just a word of caution that if you're running a small studio and you're betting big on free-to-play, it's definitely a higher risk proposition than premium casual. So when you think about your team and how you sort of staff your company and how you move people to your team, this is another key point of distinction, is that if your free-to-play game launches, your team doesn't go anywhere, right? Your team just basically stays on the project. And actually, whichever way it goes, whether it goes poorly, whether it goes really well, you're going to want to keep that team in place, or you may want to scale up that team. You may have a hot potato, the game be going really great, and you actually want to add people to it. So you're going to want to have production and engineering and art and design and that whole group that's similar to your premium casual team. But you need all these other new skill sets. You need people who understand customer acquisition. You need game data analysts who know how to run tests, and you need consumer insights, not only of your active consumers but of your potential consumers. You need in-game marketing. You need people who understand how to sell things to users. Free-to-play games are an opportunity to constantly be merchandising and marketing items to users, and you need people who understand how to go out and run a limited time offer sale and how to message that to users. So again, part of what Big Fish is offering is that in addition to all the great quality assurance, customer support, localization, and launch support that we give our partners on premium casual, we are building teams right now, and we have a couple of them, and as we grow and scale, that are going to provide a lot of this data analysis to you. And if you don't have people on your team who understand what multivariate testing is and what a cohort is, and they don't know how to basically slice and dice data really quickly and really effectively, then you're definitely going to need some help in this department, and that's something that as a publisher we're going to provide to our development partners. So let's talk a little about retention, because depending on what, a lot of people throw around a lot of different retention metrics. So, my retention's 10%, it's 50%, it's 90%, right? And what are they actually measuring? Because there's a number of different ways that you can measure retention. And so when you're setting your expectation for yourself and your team on what you want your retention to be, I'm going to give you a couple different ways to think about retention in the following slides, and then you can decide how you want to measure it, what's most effective for your game. But the percentage can vary wildly depending on how you're measuring it. So this is a chart that shows it's not for a specific game, but it's not an atypical chart for a free-to-play game. Where on the left-hand side you have a retained user. You have someone who is still playing the game on a percentage basis of the overall number of installs. And on the bottom you have the days since they installed the game. So what this is doing is this is saying the user installed the game. Did they come back the next day, yes or no? Did they come back the day after that, yes or no? Did they come back on the 3rd day, 4th day, all the way up to the 60th day? So it's a very, very sort of intense way of calculating retention, because it's not like if they came on the 1st day and they didn't show up on the 2nd, it doesn't matter whether they showed up 8 days in. You lost them on the 2nd day, as far as this chart is concerned. So what you end up with is the reality, if you measure retention this way, is that the vast majority of your users that come into your game don't make it past the 2nd or 3rd day. And you need to be prepared for this. So when you're thinking of, oh, we're going to go out and get 100,000 users or 500,000 users, just divide that number by 10, And that's how many you're going to net it out with playing your game on a daily basis 2 months down the line of those users that installed. So this is a very sort of intense way to measure it, and a very critical way to measure it. But you will net out with this incredibly loyal group of users who just come back day after day after day after day. And so when you look at this curve, this is basically a way you want to be charting your users in your game. If you have great retention, maybe the tail, maybe that bottom line is higher. Maybe it's up more in the 20–30% range. But this is definitely a way you want to be looking at your users and looking at retention in your free-to-play game. So another way to think about retention and engagement, this is a chart from Flurry, where they looked at 90-day retention. And you can see they put a bunch of games on the game types on these two axes, where they looked at frequency of play on the left side, and then they looked at 90-day retention as a percentage on the bottom. And it's a range of 0 to 50%. So what they're saying in this chart is that social turn-based games, slots games, sim management games, their 90-day retention is around 30%. And the frequency of play per week is around 20 sessions per week. So this is great data, but the way they're calculating retention in this is they're saying if you installed the game and if you came back at any point, if you just accidentally launched it once because you were looking for something else, we're going to count you as a retained user within that 90-day period. So you get to a much higher percentage by thinking of retention this way. The reality is that in a free-to-play game, just because someone checked back in once or twice over a 90-day period, they're not a user. They're not someone who is actually playing your free-to-play game. And so when someone says, "Oh, I've got 50% retention," you really want to look at that stat critically and really understand what they mean when they say that, because, again, there's a number of different ways of slicing it. So let's talk about fairway solitaire retention. And the way I'm going to talk about is I'm going to show you a third way of thinking about retention. You just take the month that you're in, and you take next month, and you do a simple percentage calculation. You say, I've got a bunch of users this month, and I acquired a bunch of new users. And then that's a number. Let's call it 100,000 people. And then of the users that are playing the game this month, how many of them are still going to be playing it next month? How many of them are going to be active and show up in the game next month? And you're going to, some users are going to drop out, and so there's going to be some churn. That's that red box up there at the top. But ideally, if the new users you're adding in plus your existing users is greater than the amount that churn out, then you're basically going to end up with an increase in number of users, and your game's going to scale. And month over month, you're going to have more and more people playing your game. So Fairway Solitaire has pretty astonishing month over month retention. If you look, a typical range for this KPI would probably be in the 30 to 50% range. Fairway Solitaire now has 90% of their users playing that game month to month. Meaning that of all the people that are playing the game right now this month, 90% of them are going to be there next month. So as you can imagine, and if you go in and look at how this game has grown and improved over the past 6 months or so, this is a direct reflection of the improvements that the team have made. And I'll tell you what they did to improve this. Well, first of all, they made an amazing game, which is for starters. But they added a daily course. So what this is we talk about these games needing to be alive, needing to be a service, needing to be dynamic. Every day that you launch Fairway Solitaire, there's 3 new courses for you to play. And they have committed to their users that these 3 courses will always be there. They have unique challenges. And if you remember back to that early slide that I showed you guys about when that first update happened with a substantial step up in improvement in monetization, that was the day they added this feature. So what users now have in their minds is that I gotta check into Fairway Solitaire today. I gotta play the daily course, because if you don't play them, they move on. You missed them. I think you can go back and buy a few of the previous ones, but they're available. You have to actually pay a fair number of golf bucks for them. So that free course that's there is only free for that day, and users are very passionate about this, and they want to complete all the courses. So this one feature dramatically improved both retention and monetization. But I want to highlight that it's daily. It's not every month you get a new piece of content, or hey, yeah, there's a new version with some new things in it. Every single day, this team is rolling out a new set of courses to their users, and as a result, they're seeing really astonishing retention and dramatic improvements in monetization. So let's talk about retention best practices. These are just going to be some generic bullet points. I'll speak a little bit to each of them. These are things that you should be thinking about to help improve the retention in your game. So there's long-term retention, there's existing user retention, which is important, but your first and most important way of thinking about retention is your first new user retention. This is basically the number of people who come into the game who actually become active and continue playing. And you've got about 5 minutes to win them over. You really don't have much time. And so, you'll all see in free-to-play games when you play them, it's like, you're going in and everything's successful and you're leveling up and it's like, you're king of the world, and that's done for a reason, is because you really don't have much time to convince a user as to whether or not they should play your game. It was free. There's a ton of other games. Why should they keep playing? You really have to make a good first impression, and you only have about 5 minutes to do it. In terms of keeping users playing your game, I would say the first diagram up there is an example of the way free-to-play games have been in the past, which is you play the game and then you wait, and then you play the game and then you wait. And there's actually a point in the game where it tells you, you can't play anymore. You're done. You have to leave. There's really nothing for you to do here. Go away, come back later. And that worked for a while, but what we're seeing with the new generation of free-to-play games is there's always a reason to play. If you're thinking of a free-to-play game design right now, you want to be asking yourself and your designers and your team, why should I always be playing this game? If I'm not playing it, I'm wishing I'm playing it. And I think that's a very important way to think of your retention, because you don't ever want to tell the user time to put the iPod down, time to walk away from the PC. You're done. You always want to give them the reason to be in there. So the other important thing for retention is creating anticipation around upcoming content, events, promotions, and updates. So what this is saying is, in playing the game as a user, I should always know that there's more coming. I should never be able to look at the game and see everything that's there, get a sense of it, and sort of feel like, well, okay, because a user is going to do a mental calculation on sort of the size of the game, the amount of stuff in it. They're actually going to look at the cost of things and start to get a feel for how much it might cost them to buy everything. They're going to do this calculation pretty early on. And if they feel like, you know what, there's not really, this may be fun for a little while, but I don't know, there doesn't seem like there's that much stuff here. You might have the world's biggest update waiting for review with Apple with a bunch of new stuff, but if there isn't some indication to the user that there's new stuff coming soon, you want to constantly be teasing that out and setting the expectation for the user that if they continue to play your game, you will continue to provide them with new content. So this one's kind of not rocket science, everyone does it, but daily bonuses are a really easy way to have users come back to your game and feel rewarded. But as far as daily motivations for playing, I go back to that Fairway Solitaire example. If you can think of a reason, a daily benefit, other than just getting some coins that a user can use and that gets a user to show up in your game, you're going to get much stronger retention. And this one's interesting. So notifications, whether they're local notifications or push notifications, we've seen that those can drive as many as 20% of all gameplay sessions starting from a notification. But there's an art to this, and your villagers miss you, please come back notification is not effective. Your notification needs to be meaningful. It needs to tell the user something about the game, going back to that concept of your game being live. You want to tell your users, hey, there's something going on right now in the game. Come check it out. The new daily course is available. And that's a helpful message to them. That's something where they actually are going to keep their notifications turned on. If you're just spamming them, telling them that they should be playing your game, they're just going to turn notifications off. And the other thing for free-to-play retention is social. Social will definitely benefit long-term retention. It'll keep your users around in the game. We've definitely seen the benefits of social when it comes to retention. Well, that's a nice transition to the next slide. How important is social? It is very important. And I'm going to give you some stats from Casino, which is a very, very social game. And give you a sense of how many social connections are going on in there. So there's been over 9.6 million friendships that have been established within Big Fish Casino. There's over 100,000 players that have greater than 10 friends. The most popular person in the game has 13,000 friends, very popular. And what we see, and this is the key point of all of this, is that players who have over 100 friends, there's a direct correlation between that data point and their purchasing and frequency of play. So when you've got users who are going to go deep with your free-to-play game, their social engagement is a really good measure of how likely and how willing they are to spend and how long they're going to stick around. All right, let's talk about monetization. So this is another chart from Flurry, and what they showed here, they took the top 1,000, they took a sampling, I think if you read the fine print down there, it's about 400 games, a little over 400 games that they looked at within the top 1,000 grossing on iOS, and they looked at it in 2011, they looked at it again in 2012, and they said, what's ARPDAU? And for those of you who don't know what that means, that's, again, your average revenue per daily active user. What's the ARPDAU for these games? And they put it into 3 buckets. You can see there the under 25 cent bucket, the 25 to 75 cent bucket, and then the over 75 cent grouping. And for those of you who've been in free play for a while, like the concept of a 50 cent ARPDAU, even 12 months ago, was pretty astonishing. Well, what they're saying in this chart is that almost half of the top 1,000 grossing free-to-play games, again, it's only 400 of them, they don't have it for all 1,000, are up over 25 cents. And that's a dramatic improvement over a year ago. So what this says, and we should all be very happy about, is that in general, ARPDAUs are improving. Monetization is improving. Users are becoming more and more comfortable and accustomed to spending in these types of games. And I think that's a testament to everyone who's making free-to-play games. And I think if we keep doing our jobs right, there's no reason why, 6 to 12 months from now, we can't be talking about games with $1 and $2 ARPDAUs. So the other reason I'm showing this is that when you think about how you want to be successful with your free-to-play game, let's say you're like, we got to be making $5,000 a day to make this pencil out. That's going to be basically the cost of our team, and that's our target, that's our goal. There's two very different ways of arriving at that $5,000 a day. Again, simple math. I won't spell it out for you. But when you're thinking about your game design and when you're thinking about your audience and who you're trying to go after, you can, I mean, based on what Flurry's saying here, you can make $5,000 a day off 10,000 users, right? And that would be a very, very good DARPU. But not unheard of. And then if you look at the other way of coming at it, which is we've got a game with broad appeal, and we've got a 5 cent DARPU, again, very valid way of making $5,000 a day, but you can come at it very differently. There's a lot of buzz right now around the mid-core games, because the mid-core games are largely regarded as having very high ARPDAUs. That would be the bottom bucket. The more casual, sort of arcadey style games are typically more up in the example game 1 bucket. So one of the things to think about with free-to-play games, which often blows people's mind, is the concentration of revenue, where you're actually getting your money from. And there's a very common term in the industry called whales. We talk about whales. Whales are your big spenders. So it's one thing to think about them conceptually. It's another thing to actually put them on a chart. Again, so this is an example free-to-play game, not a particular game, but this is not an uncommon curve. And what this is doing is it's on the left-hand side, it's saying where are you getting your money from as a percentage, the percentage of your revenue. And then along the bottom, it's saying, these are all your paying users. So it's 0 to 100%. But these are the 5% who have chosen to spend money with you. So we don't even have the non-spending users on this chart. We're just talking about the people who are spending money in your game. So there's a whole bunch of people that will spend money with you, but they'll only spend a little bit. And so it wouldn't be uncommon in a successful free-to-play game to only be getting 20% of your revenue, to be getting about 20% of your revenue from about 60 to 70% of your users. So those are still very valuable users. They're your paying users. But they're on a relative to the people who have gone deep with your game, they're really not spending very much. And then you have this very small group. It can be less than 10, maybe even less than 5% of your users who are going to be responsible for 50% of your revenue. And that is, when you think about that, what you have to really ask yourself is, am I prepared to support these users? Do I have a customer support hotline that they can call if something goes wrong for them? Because you tick them off, you have something go wrong for them in their game, and they're gone. It's like losing your VIPs. So as you build a successful free-to-play game, you have to have, and again, going back to what Big Fish can offer you, we have over 100 customer support reps sitting there waiting to support free-to-play gamers as we grow this business. And our ability to support these users, engage with them, have a lasting relationship with them is really key. So this is really it's a revenue concentration chart, but it really segues into the notion of it's very important to have excellent relationships with your customers, to be able to have a relationship, a direct relationship with them, particularly your most valuable, because they will make up almost half of the revenue for your game. The other way to slice this, take a theoretical game with 100,000 DAU, and then let's optimistically say that 10% of people are paying. So that's 10,000 paying users every day. You apply this filter to it, and you take 5% of your 10,000, and you're down to a pretty small number of people, even in a 100,000 DAU game, who are keeping the game afloat and paying for it. So how do you get that to happen? How do you incent a small number of people to spend a lot of money? How do you get people to spend $5,000 in a casual game? Well, the first thing you do is you don't ask them for money. The first thing you do is you start them playing the game, and you create the belief amongst your free-to-play gamer that they're going to be able to play your game forever for free. And if you don't successfully do this and you make it very apparent to them or too apparent to them that money is going to be required, they will disappear. They will be gone. So the first way to be great at monetization is to not be great at monetizing. It's to not go out and ask users for money until they've fallen in love with your game. So you can't think of monetization as a trick or a tactic or some way in which you're manipulating your users. Again, these are your most valuable customers. You need to get into their heads and understand what's going on for them when they do choose to monetize. And think of monetization as a user expressing love for your game. If you wake up every morning and you look at your monetization, get your Apple revenue report, or how did we do yesterday? Who's spending money in the game? Look, great, we made a bunch of money. That is a vote of confidence. That is a stamp of quality. That does not mean that your latest monetization trick or scheme is working. So that's definitely the way to think about it. And what that will do is make sure that people who are spending money on the game are going to keep coming back and spending more. So the other important thing about monetization, it is your second most important thing to worry about. The first, unquestionably, is retention. So if you have a game that has amazing retention and poor monetization, you have a solvable problem. You have lots of time. You have users who are sticking around and playing. You got all the time in the world, right? Now, you might run out of cash in terms of funding your development, but again, that's where Big Fish can help. So in terms of the monetization piece, you have to think of launch your game, look at the retention KPIs. Once you have excellent retention, then you can start worrying about monetization. And as far as this concept of sort of when do I ask users for money, you have to allow them to get into a rhythm of playing. They have to understand the cadence of your game and be very comfortable with it before you actually ask them for money because you've disrupted it in some way. So let's talk about things that users will value. This is really where you have to start at the heart of your game is if you can't answer the question, why would someone spend $5,000 in your game, then you're not making a successful free-to-play game. If there isn't a way for a user to spend $5,000 in your game, then now it seems preposterous. Oh, why would someone ever spend $5,000? Well, they'll spend it because they really value your game and they spend a lot of time with it and they really enjoy it. And they will value. You will offer them the ability to have things that are convenient. You will offer them the ability to have a sense of ownership and pride over something they've created in your game. It will become very meaningful for them. You can offer them things that are scarce, things that are rare, things that are limited time. You can allow them to feel successful and have status and rank within the game. But all these things really drive at the emotions of the player. And again, it's something that you need to come at from thinking of, where is their value? Because it's certainly not the user looking at a little virtual pixelized item on the screen and thinking that little virtual item is actually worth $100 or even $5. They're doing it. They're spending money on themselves. When a user monetizes in free-to-play, it's money spent for themselves, on themselves, and that needs to be around something that they really value. So let's talk a little bit, circle back. So talk a little bit about Big Fish and our global PC app store. So there's still about 1.2 billion PC users out there. We're very optimistic about the PC space, as we've talked about yesterday and today. And we reach about 14 million unique gamers each month. You might think that number is not that big in contrast with some of the other numbers that are thrown around scale, but these are extremely valuable users. These are users that come to our site. They've been coming for a number of years, and they are very excited about our games and excited about monetizing in our games. We've already launched free-to-play games on the PC, like I mentioned. We've got Casino and Found live with in-app purchasing. And we've also, the way we look at PC is we're open to working with you if you have browser-based content, even content that's on Facebook right now, online web-based content. We're very interested in bringing that to our audience through the online section of our site. Or if you have an iPad game or a downloadable game that you want to bring to the PC, we're very interested in partnering you around that as well. And if you look at where Apple was in 2010 and where they are today in terms of the mix of where the revenue is coming from there, You know, don't want to make any predictions, but I think there's definitely room for growth. We don't see free-to-play revenue as replacing premium revenue. We don't see our premium business declining in light of this content being released. We actually see it as additive, and we see it that we're definitely going to be able to grow our business. So here's an example of Big Fish Casino live on the site, where you can play it, and then there happened to be a day where we were featuring Found heavily with a Head and Shoulders. And so I want to wrap up with sort of the kicker of the whole presentation, which is this chart. So you remember I talked about Found earlier, and we talked about how it was doing on iOS, and it's doing great. It's got 15-cent average revenue per daily active user. We launched that exact same game on our PC App Store, and it has got anywhere on any given day, anywhere between a 50 and 60-cent ARPDAU. So we're very pleased about that fact, and it gives us confidence that the fact that we can do 4x the monetization on a per user daily basis that we're doing on iOS in our PC App Store gives us a lot of enthusiasm, and so it's one of the reasons why we're moving into free-to-play on the PC and are interested in having your content to help do it. So let's talk about what we learned today. I'm getting the 2-minute warning. So free-to-play, huge opportunity, but high risk, steep learning curve. We covered that. Very different than premium casual. They are services, and you need to think about every aspect of your development, your business, and your approach to your customer entirely differently. You can't just add like coins to your premium casual game and think you've got a free-to-play game. And retention is unquestionably your most important measure of success. If you've got a game with excellent retention, then you've got a lot of time. And we believe, and that's why we're here today, that we are the best global partner for you for your free-to-play games. We've got a proven track record with some existing hit games out there on the market where we can share insights. We've got distribution on both mobile and PC with 4x the monetization currently on PC that we see on iOS. We've got a very large existing user base of paying users. This is important when you're talking to publishers about how many users they can bring. We have a large audience of users that like to spend money with us. And we have a long-term view. So we don't want to do a bunch of quick one-and-done partnerships with developers. We view these as long-term relationships. We want to take free-to-play games to market and be working with you under the assumption that, hey, it might work, it might not, but we're going to roll all those learnings together and carry forward. And we have a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, development, technology, and live ops supports for you and your teams. So that's the end of the presentation. We have a big booth here. We have a bunch of people here from developer relations, and we are very interested in talking to you about your free-to-play games. So if you haven't met with us already, go ahead and swing by the booth and talk to them, and hopefully we can work together. So thanks very much.
Well, we had a lot of people come in during the course of that presentation. Thank you, Chris. Questions for Chris?
So I have a question about hey there.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the installs on the PC App Store. What are you looking at for the daily installs? And also if you could talk about the down numbers for the iOS titles that you're having.
Sorry, what was the second part?
What's your DAU for the iOS titles?
DAU, are you... Sorry. Yeah. So I'll answer the first one since I understood that. So we're seeing a typical number of installs that we see relative to our premium casual business, and it's a healthy number in terms of, I don't actually have it off the top of my head, but it's consistent with what we would see from a premium casual game. On the mobile, your question was, sorry, I didn't get the second part, but
he was asking about DAU, DAU.
Oh, daily active users on mobile. I don't know DAU. I know we have released publicly that I think for our monthly active users on mobile right now is around 6 or 7 million on iOS specifically.
I think we have time for one more. I'm sure Chris is going to get mobbed as soon as he comes off the stage, and I want to give him some opportunity to talk to you one-on-one.
Don't mob me and go to the booth if you want to, if you got games, but yeah, I am happy to talk to you afterwards.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, I'm Stan from Double Games, and I have a question from the point of view of Big Fish affiliates. So these free-to-play games, they don't have a price tag on them, obviously. So what's the incentive for affiliates to distribute those games? Do they get a part of in-game revenues, or is there any other incentive? Thank you.
Yeah, I think the easy way to answer that is we're still figuring that out, and we want to work with affiliates to understand that. Paul Handelman's here at the conference, and he'd be the best person to ask that question to, because he's responsible for taking our content to other sites, other portals. So we haven't done that yet, but certainly we'd want to be talking to affiliates about how best to do that going forward.
Hello. How do you monetize between in-game purchase and monetization? Thanks to advertising.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the only free-to-play game that we have that has advertising or sort of virtual currency for video watching is our casino game. It's incremental revenue. I think it would be a mistake to think that even that you're going to have that be the bulk of your revenue. So. It's great to do. It definitely works. And if you talk to the guys who offer these services, it can allowing users to get virtual currency for watching ads and things can actually drive additional monetization down the line. Everyone worries, it's going to cannibalize my in-app purchase sales, but it actually comes around to more likely to create a paying user. So it's worth doing. I just wouldn't bet the farm on it or think that you're going to double your revenue because of it.
I had a question. On the PC, you said you launched a PC version of Found, right? And what is that? What tools base is that on in terms of social integration, analytics, payments?
Sure. Yeah. So we handle all the purchasing. So we've built a in-app purchase SDK that we give to our development partners, and they integrate it, and it basically takes them through the purchase funnel with us. And we handle all the credit card authentication, all that. As far as the analytics, we have a combination of our own and some third-party, so it's a bit of a mix there. And as far as what was the first? The underlying technology, I think it's just a homegrown C++ based.
Third question was social integration.
Social integration. So that game doesn't currently have a heavy social featuring on the PC side, so that there's not heavy social features there. We are open to, we're fine with having Facebook integration in there. People want to use that for their social graph, or if they want to have their own game specific. Casino actually has a proprietary social network, so if all your friends in Casino and your game ID and your identity and your profile picture and everything are specific to that game, so that works as well. And that's what we're doing in Casino.
Do we have another question? All right, then. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.